welcome to First Things First. I'm Jenna Wolf. That's the Hall of Famer Chris Carter. That is Nick Wright. And guys, I am terrible at picking out which college basketball team is the best team in the country.
Ignore the left side of the bracket.
Terrible,
All
Nick.
of our left sides of the bracket are ruined. The right side of the bracket will determine the champion in most pools. And don't feel badly, Jenna.
I woke up this morning and I had to read it, and then I put my glasses on, and then I put two pair of glasses on. I'm like, nope, I read that right. Yep. I'm officially done.
This has been a great week of shows I'm excited for, too.
Yeah, your bracket might be messed up, Jenna, but the outfit, you look fabulous.
Thank you.
On a Friday.
Yes.
A little pop right there to help Nick and I. Definitely a rose between a thorn and a bush.
I don't know which one I want to be.
I used to be thorny, but I'm a little more bush.
Okay, got it. All right, good to know. Got it.
You guys look great, too. It has been a great week. Let's finish it off with this. Kentucky is a lock, they said. Kentucky's got an easy road to the Final Four, they said. Kentucky will sail right to the end, they said. They were all wrong. Kentucky lost to Kansas State last night, 61-58, missing a 3 at the buzzer. Kansas State now advances to the Elite Eight, where they will face Loyola Chicago, just like everyone predicted. Coach Cal spoke last night on if the season was a success.
This was a rewarding year for me. I wish it could have ended in another week, but, you know, for me to see how individual players got better, for me to see how this team came together, for me to see Jared in, Jared out, all the stuff that went on with injuries, and they hung in there and played a bunch of freshmen. I mean, I thought they really performed.
So the social media backlash last night had a lot of people criticizing Coach Cal, just that he coaches these great teams and then they don't get too far into the tournament, and that I think was some of the impetus to what was asked here. How do you measure success for John Calipari's team, CC?
Well, you have to do it differently because Coach Cal, he's adopted the one and done, which in turn, because of that, he has inherited a lot of hate, especially social media-wise. They don't like the style that he's run. They don't like the questionable background as far as other programs where he's been, where infractions were involved, rumors being involved. So Coach Cal, he's not the most popular coach. He always gets criticized. Even if he was to win, they would find something else. But if watching Kentucky all season, this was a rewarding year because they struggled. We had a conversation in January, would they make the tournament? But it just didn't start this season. Last year's recruiting, they lost 3 guys to the NBA draft. 3 guys in the top 14. I'll say, so tell me what other team was in the Sweet 16 and lost 3 guys to that. That would be only Kentucky. So you have to measure it in different wins and losses than other coaches because he's doing so many other things. He is trying to get guys drafted. He's embraced the one and done. He missed out on a couple recruits that are playing other places. So this was not his dominant recruiting class. They struggled during the season. But to see these young kids, and I know that, I talked to someone close to Coach Cal yesterday before the game. People were like, he said, oh, don't drink the poison. He knows his basketball team.
Right.
He knows this wasn't a mature basketball team. He knew that they couldn't shoot the ball really well beyond the 3. He knew that there could be problems for them going forward. So he was well aware of that. So you do have to judge it in a different way, you know, because with Coach Cal, it's wins on the court, but it's also how many guys does he transition into their NBA career. Just
real quick, would he take that and risk the success in the tournament so that he could have these prolific guys in the NBA?
Well, he realized they don't run together sometime. You know, in trying to run the type of program that he's running, success in the NCAA, when you got 4 or 5 freshmen starting year after year, experience really helps in this tournament.
Right, and so you mentioned it. He loses De'Aaron Fox, Malik Monk, Bam, the kid from that's with the Heat right now, Bam Adebayo last year, all lottery picks. And then this year they make the Sweet 16 again. People pick at Coach Cal because they don't like Coach Cal. My opinion, you know him well. He wished you a happy birthday on this television show. I don't know Coach Cal at all, aside from a couple interviews I've done with him. But what I respect about him as much, if not more, than almost any college basketball coach is he is honest about what he's doing. He talked about how proud he is that, and I'm not being political here, but the senator from Kentucky, Mitch McConnell, came to him and said, look at how many millionaires you've helped create. Look at the generational wealth you have helped create for young people who, yes, most of those guys were going to go pro anyway, but he tries to put them in the best position. He is transparent about the transaction that is going on. You are coming to the University of Kentucky for a year or two. We are going to ride that as well as we can to success for the program, prominence for the program, prominence for the school, and I will try to put you in the best position to get wealth for you and your family. And it's not like he doesn't win. Once Coach Cal makes another Final Four, which I believe will happen the next couple years, he will be top 5 all-time Final Fours, top 5 all-time Elite Eights. He's already been in 3 national championship games at 2 different programs. He's one of only 3 coaches to take 3 different programs to the Final Four. Like, the idea that he has all these great players and no success is not there. They won a championship at Kentucky. They were a couple missed free throws away from winning a championship at Memphis, and they made a Final Four at UMass. He goes to the Elite Eight, not this year, but seemingly every year. The guy's been to the Elite Eight 11 times. So the idea that he doesn't have success in the tournament, nobody is Coach K. And by the way, people say, oh, what about Roy Williams? Roy Williams had this rap until a few years ago when they peeled a few championships. The school I root for, Syracuse. Jim Boeheim is one of the greatest coaches ever. I will go to my grave believing that. They've won the title once. Tom Izzo, one of the greatest coaches ever. They've won the title once. It is, Jenna, it's a really hard tournament with a lot of randomness because it's 6.
Especially if you're going to go into it every year with kids.
With no experience.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So do you think there's a second layer of a conversation here to be had about what's the goal? Is it to have success, if we're a big-time program in the NCAA, have success in college or to have success in the NBA with the kids that came from college? What do you think is more
Coach
important?
Cal would not go to Big Blue Basketball Nation because that's where Kentucky is. It's one of the great programs that we've ever seen in college basketball if winning was not important.
Winning there.
Winning at Kentucky. Winning for Kentucky. Winning for the fans of Kentucky. Winning for that administration. But also, he puts the kids first. Whatever the kids' aspirations are, Coach Cal does that, and he never blames the kid. He always takes responsibility. Most coaches don't do that, all right? You will see where they will start putting some of the blame on the kids, how they didn't perform. Coach Cal, he always puts it on himself and on the coaching staff. But at the forefront of Coach Cal, winning is winning on the court. But if this kid yesterday, the kid missed 14 free throws. Yeah. They missed 14 free throws. If that kid gets drafted in the NBA, Coach Cal will take that for the overall experience of helping to develop those kids.
P.J. Washington missed 12 of their 14 free throws. What I think is this. I don't think Duke is the only program that gets to have it both ways. Duke is the only program that gets to produce consistent quality NBA players, now not the quality Kentucky has, and also win a bunch of championships.
Is that Krzyzewski?
No. Also, too, we need to throw this in there because people try to act like Coach K. Coach K has adopted what Coach Cal was doing.
With the one and dones now. As we saw next year, he's got the top 3 recruits, 1, 2, 3. All those kids, I would imagine, hope to be one and done. But we can go down the list. Bill Self has won 14 consecutive conference championships at one of the 5 most prominent programs historically in the country, KU. He has won the championship once and been to the Final Four twice. That's it. Here's the dirty secret about the NCAA tournament.
Tell me.
And we pick on the coaches we don't like. Nobody criticizes Izzo for only winning 1 title and he's earned it. People really like Tom Izzo. Yeah. People really like his player development. Yes. People don't like Cal and the slick back hair and what they feel is a little bit of backroom.
He was in college
dealing.
basketball, had some allegations, went to the NBA. He's been paid a lot of money.
Right. But the dirty secret of the NCAA tournament is this. It is a wildly entertaining 3 weeks that is a ludicrously unfair way to crown a champion. Because of the randomness, because you have 6 consecutive single elimination opportunities, it is not the best way to determine, in my eyes, Who was the best team in college basketball that year? One year that Coach Cal made the final, his team won 11 games, they lose in the final. Another year they don't make the final, they're undefeated going into the Final Four and lose to Wisconsin. Like, that's just the randomness of the tournament, which is why Rick Pitino, Jim Boeheim said, I believe Rick Pitino is the single best coach in college basketball. This was right after he got fired. Rick Pitino won 2 titles ever. One at Kentucky a lifetime ago, and then the one at Louisville a few years ago. That's a guy that Jim Boeheim, one of the best coaches ever, says is the best coach ever. He'd only won it twice. It's so hard.
I'd still take the tournament every single year.
What do you mean? Oh, like as a fan?
As a fan.
Oh, it's great.
Yes. It's just one of the best times of the year.
No doubt. We all would
And if we didn't have the one and done rule, the tournament would be even better.
Right. Perhaps. So meanwhile, Kentucky's out. No SEC teams right now in the Elite Eight. Last year, 3 teams were there. Interesting.
Yeah.
We'll talk more about
K-State.
that. Yeah, really.
And they took that away from them.
Coming up, a new twist surrounding Kawhi Leonard and the Spurs. Wait till you hear what's next. First things first, more after this. This is the First Things First podcast, the episode brought to you by forhims.com. It's time to discuss an issue that you may not want to hear. 66% of men lose their hair by age 35. But good news, it's easier to keep the hair you have than to replace what you lost. How will you feel a year from now if there are bald spots creeping up? Well, here are your options. Do you want a bald spot to pop up or your hairline to recede, or do you want to do something about it first? This is where forhims.com comes in. It is a one-stop shop for hair loss, skin care, and an overall helpful product for men. That's right. Thanks to science, baldness can be optional. Hims connects you with real doctors and medical-grade solutions to treat hair loss. There are no waiting rooms or weird doctor visits down a back alley. Just go to forhims.com and take action today. It is so easy. Products will be brought right to your door. Here's how to do it. Order now. Listeners get a trial month of Hims for just $5 today, right now, while supplies last. See website for full details. This would cost hundreds if you went to the doctor or a pharmacy. Go to forhims.com/first. That's forhims, forhims.com/first. forhims.com/first. Soap opera that has become Kawhi Leonard and the Spurs had an interesting episode last night. And if you haven't been watching, let me fill you in. Star Kawhi got hurt. He was medically cleared to play. Only played 9 games this season, missing 63. We learned yesterday from ESPN's Adrian Wojnarowski that the Spurs held a players-only meeting where they tried to get Kawhi to return. Some said the meet was contentious. Others said no. Classic he said, she said. Danny Green tweeted this out saying, couldn't be any more incorrect. LOL. Nick, what's your reaction to all of this?
All right, my first reaction is as far as the report goes. There is not a single NBA reporter, with all respect to our friend Chris Mannix is going to come by here, that I trust more than Adrian Wojnarowski. He has been covering this beat as well as anyone. If he reports something happened, I believe that happened. So I read that report yesterday when it came out, and that is as close to gospel as it can get for me. What we know is that team meeting happened. People can dispute how contentious it was. But the timeline is interesting. That team meeting happened this weekend. Since that meeting is when Pop has seemingly changed course, saying there is no deadline on Kawhi. Whenever he wants, why would I set a deadline, Pop said. When he comes back, he comes back.
Which is different than what he said earlier.
It sure seems to me to be very different from what he said earlier. Also, since that meeting, Manu Ginobili came out and said, Kawhi's not coming back.
Oh, you guys tricked us.
Right, the media. You media folks made me think he's coming back. Kawhi's not coming back. So something that happened in that meeting made Manu feel, this is our team moving forward. We have to deal with that. From a Spurs perspective, if this is their team moving forward, they are drawing dead to be any type of factor in the postseason. From the Kawhi Leonard perspective, this one is perplexing. This is not, I understand that he has potentially a $200 million contract coming this offseason. Kawhi Leonard could come back, blow out his knee, I obviously do not hope that happens, and still be offered the $200 million contract. Boogie Cousins blew his Achilles, is not as good as Kawhi, is older than Kawhi, plays a position where you're more concerned about injury, and he's going to get a max contract.
Wait, do you think at this point, after sitting out all these games, if he now comes out and blows his knee, they would still offer him, knowing that he decided to sit out this whole... Really?
I do. In the NBA, if you have a player like that, you do everything you can to keep him, especially if you're in a city like San Antonio. Like, the risk factor for Kawhi, you can't compare it to like a college football player sitting out a bowl game. He's going to get his contract offer no matter what. And his refusal to play, when seemingly the doctors believe he can play, his teammates believe he can play, is mind-boggling to me, CC.
Well, I don't need glasses. I don't wear glasses.
I get it, guys.
But
wear glasses.
But let me tell you what I see in this story. I happen to know Kawhi. I happen to know the people around Kawhi. And in situations like this, all you can really do is go on the reputation of the player. And there's no one that has a better reputation as far as working hard, a guy who's not about drama, than Kawhi Leonard. Now, all of a sudden, people think, Nick, you just said, you're perplexed by it. If Kawhi said he can't play, if he could play, he'd be out there. There's a reason why he's not going out there. It has nothing to do with basketball. It has nothing to do with contract or making money. He doesn't feel as if he can perform at the level that he's used to. And when he was out on the court healthy, he's one of the top 5 NBA players. He doesn't feel like he can play to that level, and I trust his reputation. I trust his judgment. It's his talent. We have seen no crack in his personality that would lead us to believe that Kawhi, if he could play, that he wouldn't be out there. So for me, knowing the player, knowing the people around the player, if Kawhi was healthy, Kawhi would be out there playing for San Antonio.
But let me ask you this, though, CC, because I know you know Kawhi and I know you know his circle, but I think it's fair to say his teammates know him better. How rare is it as a pro athlete to have other
his teammates don't know if they can play?
No. Nobody knows that but Kawhi. I understand that. But how rare is that as a pro athlete to have a player say, I'm too hurt to play, and have his teammates in a players-only meeting say, you should be playing?
Yeah, I don't know that that's what was in the meeting. I don't know. I didn't hear one San Antonio player saying to Kawhi, you should be playing, and Kawhi saying, I can't play.
If nothing
so
else,
I don't believe that part happened. I didn't see that in the report. All right? I don't see any player being able to verify that they questioned if Kawhi could play, because there was also reports coming out that the players were really supportive of Kawhi. They personally wanted to hear from Kawhi if he was able to play. So I don't think it was... You don't see that in locker rooms. You don't see guys question, because guys know. They know when they're hurt. They know the reputation of the player. So I don't think that part right there that we can verify that.
But we know there was a meeting. We know the point of the meeting is to find out what his status was. And we know it was the players who wanted to know what his status was. So they know he's medically cleared to play. I know why you think. Why do you think Kawhi Leonard isn't playing?
When I said it's perplexing, I understand I'm supposed to come on TV and have answers and say this is what's happening.
No, this one is confusing.
It is because of the player's reputation, because of the organization's reputation, because of Greg Popovich's reputation. All of these things, the player, Kawhi's reputation. All of these things seem to be going against each other.
Most of the time we take for granted that we think the organization has the best interest of the player. But for me, I know the player better than I trust San Antonio.
We also saw what happened last year with Isaiah Thomas.
But that might be where you and I diverge here. I have a much longer history watching how the Spurs have handled players than I have watching Kawhi as a pro.
Well, this is what I got a long history. I know Kawhi since he came into the league. I know the people that represent Kawhi. All right? Forget about what I see on TV. Forget about what an organization report. These are the people that handled my career. Same people handling his career. So my intel is fairly significant.
No, I'm not disputing that at all. The point that I'm making is if the Spurs are pushing a player who does not feel comfortable playing to play, that is a giant left turn from the way they as an organization
from all the information that's been let out. But we don't know. David Robinson sat right here and said he got a second opinion when the Spurs doctor came back with something that he didn't necessarily like. So it's sometime an organization releases information, so we developed a reputation on the information release. But also, there's a bunch of information that's not released, and it's not in the best interest of the player.
Yes or no, Kawhi Leonard plays again this season?
Nope.
You?
Well, I don't know.
Okay. Okay, well, that wasn't part of the yes or no choices, but I get
don't
it. Coming
know.
up, could the Giants be going in a new direction in the NFL draft? Let's talk some football next on First Things First. Moving on to Johnny Manziel. He threw yesterday at the University of San Diego's Pro Day with representatives of 13 NFL teams on hand to watch. Manziel spent 2 seasons with the Browns, last seen in an NFL uniform in 2015. Cece, what do you make of Manziel taking part in this yesterday?
Well, first, I think for full disclosure, University of San Diego, they're going to have a handful of NFL teams go there anyway. Last year, they had a player drafted.
So it wasn't just for Manziel?
Absolutely not. There's no way 13 teams are going to go to California to watch Johnny Manziel work out. But part of the process, that's why Johnny Manziel put himself into that workout. They needed a quarterback, but also they would be able to generate a certain amount of attention. So that's the way you able to take advantage of the eyeballs in the NFL being on the incoming crop of rookies and potential free agents. So it's nice that Johnny's able to get out there and throw. I didn't see a rush. I didn't see people chasing after him because those are the things he really had problems with. Throwing on time, anticipation. So, yes, I'm glad Johnny's throwing the football. I'm more concerned about his overall health than anything else.
Listen, I'm glad you said what you said in the beginning, which is this has been presented by some as if those teams showed up to see Johnny Manziel. If the assistant coach was throwing these routes, the exact same number of teams show up. There's a couple guys on San Diego who are projected to be drafted. And then, as Cece mentioned, there are a bunch of guys who could be undrafted but invites to camp.
I'm going to tell you, I didn't like the sense of urgency in his drops. Like, I've been watching these other quarterbacks. I saw Sam Darnold's pro day. Watch how quick they drop back and throw the ball. Johnny's act like this is just a Saturday day stroll. Now, for me, if it's a pro workout for me, my drops are very crisp. My timing is even more so than what I see right here. Like, he's patting the ball. He's got all time to throw. No, this is not the type of thing that I see when I watch the video. So I don't believe Johnny will be picked up by an NFL team. Also, Johnny didn't get no taller. Johnny's arm didn't get no stronger. And some of the things that he's done off the field, as far as his ability to be able to concentrate, he hasn't proven to NFL teams that he can do that.
I think Johnny is an incredible long shot to ever play in the NFL again. And I think the only way he does play in the NFL is if he goes and plays professional football in a different league first. I think that if he could go to the CFL and not only show the ability to make plays, but show the ability to show up for a year to practice and meetings and everything on time and stay healthy.
It did make me think, though, Johnny Manziel has never proven he can play, hadn't played in the NFL in a couple years, so people are generating attention for NFL scouts potentially watch him. Mm-hmm. But Colin Kaepernick, he can't get a phone call. And he could play in the NFL. He was a starter, took his team to the Super Bowl. It just makes me like...
Cap's out there renting out fields in Houston to work out by himself.
Yeah,
right, absolutely.
Just some tremendous irony to that.
All right, we are over a month away from the NFL draft, but it's never too soon to predict every single move from every single team every single day, said I. Today, the New York Giants. They traded one of their Giants, all 6'5" of defensive end Jason Pierre-Paul, to the Bucks. They might consider drafting his replacement at number 2. They will host Bradley Chubb, the defensive end from North Carolina, in the coming weeks. Chris Carter, what does this trade mean for the future of the Giants?
Well, it means a couple things. It means that who they have their eyes on at number 2 is how it could change. Yeah. All right, because all we've been talking about
is Saquon Barkley.
Saquon Barkley at number 2 or a quarterback. So now, Dave Gettleman, we have to kind of listen to what he said coming in when he took the job as a general manager. Eli Manning is my quarterback. So that'd be like, okay, let's slow down on them drafting one of the potential top 3 quarterbacks. Then they trade JPP. That's an immediate hole in the defense that needs to be filled. And the third thing is they got a little kid who generates a lot of attention. And they're going to have to clear some salary cap space to offer him a contract. All right? Because going into free agency, this year's free agency. Now, they don't have to give him a contract this year, but you can believe with a trade like this, when you take $20 million off the books, you know, when you pay a guy basically $22 million for one season, you are looking into your not-so-distant future. And I just believe all those things now come into the Giants as far as perspective. They need to get their salary cap under control. You can replace a big-time player like that with a rookie contract, a first-round contract, which is substantially less. They're not going to take a quarterback with that number 2. And so that right there, I think, is all the things Giants fans should be looking at.
I'm not convinced they're not taking a quarterback with the number 2, but the point that my biggest takeaway is what CC touched on at the end. This, to me, is not about Bradley Chubb. This is about Odell Beckham Jr. Like, I understand that there was the
It's got to be about Bradley Chubb, too, because
Go ahead.
I think on some people's board, he's the highest-ranked player. All right, now, in talking to people, the Giants realize that. And the Giants don't want to be in this. They've been in this position 2 times, right? We talked about the players they've taken. They took Eli Manning, and they took Lawrence Taylor. Now, if they don't think Eli Manning is there, they're going to go after Lawrence Taylor, and that's who Chubb is.
Here's my point. I'm not saying it's not about Bradley Chubb because the Giants can't draft him at number 2. My point is, if that's what they think of him, they would draft him even if JPP were still there. Like, they wouldn't not take Bradley.
There's not a need for him if you have JPP. JPP is in the second year of a contract. You just gave him an extension, a huge contract.
Gave him a ton of upfront money last offseason. Last offseason, if someone wanted JPP, by the way, it was going to cost them not only a ton of money, but 2 first-round picks. This offseason, you can trade for him for a third-rounder, evidently, and get him cheaper. I think this is about Beckham, primarily. I think this is about what CeCe mentioned at the end, which is clearing up the money for Odell Beckham Jr. And what I will say about Chubb, and we do have to be careful with this because CeCe yesterday made the point when Mike D'Antoni said, James Harden's the best offensive player ever. Do people know how long ever is? I always wonder if scouts or anonymous sources know how long a generation is. Because I can think of a half dozen pass rushers who I've been told are generational pass rushers. Yeah. I heard Myles Garrett was a generational pass rusher, clear-cut number 1 pick, forget the quarterbacks, take the sure thing, and now I'm hearing Chubb's better than Myles Garrett. I heard Jadeveon Clowney for 3 years was the best pass rushing prospect in a generation, and then in the days leading up to the draft, I heard he's not even the best pass rushing prospect in his own draft. That's Khalil Mack. And by the way, Mack has proven out to be an extraordinary player. So this is not anti-Bradley Chubb at all. I'm simply saying I think if he is a generational player, and you have him ranked as number 1 player on your board, and you're not drafting a quarterback, I would draft him whether JPP were there or not, even if it is not your biggest position of need. The added benefit of this clearly is the money that you free up for Beckham. And I'll say one other thing about the Giants' needs. With or without JPP and with or without Bradley Chubb, they have spent a ton of money the last few years on acquiring what they believe are top-flight defensive players. Where they haven't spent a ton of money before this offseason was on that offense. Now, they signed the left tackle, Nate Solder, away from New England. They haven't had a star running back in quite some time. And we've talked about their lack of a plan post-Eli at quarterback. I think all those things apply here. I'm not saying they won't draft Bradley Chubb, but I don't think this was just about Bradley Chubb.
All right. Let's see what happens. We've only got over a month to go, so plenty of time to discuss this at length. Again, coming up, how is LeBron still so good? One of us is going to weigh in on that. I don't know which one. One of us.
What my is Mannix here?
First things first, back after this.
Does Mannix have him given out of the first round?
Welcome back to First Things First. We welcome in Yahoo Sports senior writer, friend of the program, and always a good time when he argues with my guy right here, Chris Mannix.
Good to see you,
Chris.
How are you?
Good to see you.
Everything good?
Someday, I want to defend something or someone in the way Nick defends LeBron. Someday I want to.
Well, what do you feel
someday.
so passionate, so righteous about, Chris?
I don't know. I mean,
what would you go to your death for?
There's nothing. There's nothing.
Like family. Like that's it. Like it's like family and LeBron for Nick.
I've got both of them.
Okay.
No, you don't. Because there's sometimes you're out on them.
Okay. You're right. He's never.
And let me tell you what. Also with family and kids.
Let me hear about.
You get worried too. Mm-hmm. He never's worried.
Never.
Okay. Yeah.
Never.
And I'm just curious. Okay, you know what? Let's just go ahead. Let's just start. I'll let you guys have it. Because I guess this is what
I thought you were going to let us have it.
No, I decided against it. Like, you guys can have your little pot shots on this because what we are learning is that there's only been one person that's been right about this all year long. Just one. I'm just saying. Go ahead.
Well, now we have 1 minute for Chris Mannix. Hey, LeBron didn't play last night and yet still somehow got better. That's how good he is, and it shouldn't be lost on us. Nick wrote this, that we
I
have
did
the
not
ability
write this.
right now to watch one of the greatest players to ever play the game, and we can watch him on any given night. And we've had that ability now for 15 straight years. Chris Maddox, how much longer can LeBron be the best player in the NBA? Give me 15. Is it 80 more years? How many
Look,
more
I
years?
think he can do it for 3 to 5 more years. I mean, at the level he's playing offensively, and the fact that we have to kind of throw out the norms with LeBron James. Nobody in NBA history has been built like LeBron James. Nobody in NBA history has the kind of blend of unique physical talents that LeBron James has. So offensively, he can play that way for 3 to 5 years. Where I'd push back a little bit on, and look, it's not really relevant this year because even you tweeted this out the other night. James Harden is going to be the MVP, so it's not going to change much this season. But defensively, this is probably LeBron's worst year defensively. I mean, I was at the game.
I would agree.
I was at the game in Portland last week, and just watching him the entire game, that was a magnificent offensive game. Turnaround jump shots, 3-pointers, the dunk where he put Yusuf Nurkic in a body bag. I mean, he was phenomenal. But defensively, he just takes 3, 4, 5 possessions off in the first 3 quarters. Now, that's not to say he's not still a great defensive player. Yeah. He's just not dialing it up to a 10 until he has to. So he's conserving energy on that end of the floor to give it on the other end, and that's going to make him, as time goes on, a more one-dimensional player.
The defense argument you're not going to get from me. Like LeBron, there was a point in time when LeBron was arguably the best defender in the league, a couple years in Miami. He came in second place to Defensive Player of the Year one year to Marc Gasol. He is not putting forth that type of effort night in, night out anymore. Now, I would compare that something to a marathoner that is saving for a finishing sprint because, as we have seen in the playoffs, his level of defense ticks up and the team's level of defense ticks up. But when it comes to MVPs, when it comes to evaluating guys in the regular season, we don't give them credit, and we shouldn't, for what they will be come the postseason. So I'm not going to make the defense argument at all. As far as how long can he be the best player in the league, because he is still so clearly the best offensive force in the league, this is where the age thing is interesting.
Yeah, I don't think he's the best offensive player. You said that yesterday. I don't think he's the best offensive player.
Well, then how can he be? Let me ask you this, because I said that yesterday and you disagreed with it, but then I don't understand. Because you believe he's the best player in the league, right?
Yes.
Okay, but you think he hasn't been good on defense, and there's players better than him on offense.
No. Listen, you have to separate them. You said the best offensive player. The best offensive player, the most dangerous player right now, James Harden and Kevin Durant. Like, I would still take those guys over LeBron offensively. I'm not talking about their totality. We're talking about on the offensive side. All right? If we have one shot to win a game, who do you want to have the ball or orchestrating the offense?
Well, but then I'm just curious. Then why don't you think KD's the best player in the league? Because I know you think he's a better defender. So if KD,
I don't compare them to playing defensively. What they're doing defensively is totally different. LeBron is because of lack of interest. It's not as if he can't play defense. He's played defense at a high level. At this point in his career, he is conserving energy on the defensive side. That's it. So there's no need to compare him defensively to him and what Kevin Durant is doing on the defensive end.
You have to separate, too. I mean, the MVP versus who is still the best player in the world, who can still do everything offensively. LeBron is still the latter. And, Chris, I'd push back a little bit because you say, who would you want with the ball in his hands, end-of-game situations? It's still LeBron James. And look, you're picking from the rarefied air of the great. I mean, would I have a problem with Harden having the ball? Of course not. He gets to the free throw line as much as anybody. Same thing with Kevin Durant. His shot making is almost unparalleled at this point. But LeBron, head of steam, going to the basket, court vision, everything combined, willingness to pass, I would still want him with the ball in his hands end of games.
Well, and to the question on...
See, I brought you two together.
See, exactly right.
It's almost impossible.
To the question on how much longer can he be the best player in the league, while LeBron hasn't seemed to tail off the last few years with age, like he was better in year 14 than year 13, and I think he's been better in year 15 than year 14, what we got to remember is the guys who are supposed to then take the mantle, what will age be doing to them? Steph just turned 30. KD's about to turn 30. Harden's about to turn 29. Typically, you remove LeBron from it, your peak as an NBA player is 27 to 31. And then Jordan, it was a little different with that second comeback. But typically, that is your peak. So then we have to wonder, okay, so if LeBron you said another 3 years or so. When he starts to tail off, is that around the same time KD and Steph are tailing off. And then are we talking about actually the guy, it gets passed to Giannis or it gets passed to Embiid? And there's one other factor here that I think is really interesting, which is you look at the top 7 players in the sport. LeBron, Durant, Harden, Steph, Kawhi, Anthony Davis, Giannis. Pick the order. I think Russ is, you can make an argument for Russ, but he's probably 8th. Of those top 7, 6 of them have been injured this year. The one who hasn't been injured this year is the one who hasn't been injured ever. So when we're talking about, or hasn't missed games due to injury ever, I should say. So when we're talking about how much longer can he maintain this, the injury factor, which is what stopped Kobe from being one of the... Kobe, until he blew his Achilles, was one of the 5 best players in the league up to year, I think that was 17 when it happened. And then injury got him. Like, that is a factor with LeBron that we haven't had to do the math on, unlike really any other player that we've ever seen.
Look, if you're asking if, you know, the Hardens and the Currys and the Durants in year 15 of their careers are going to be doing what LeBron is doing in year 15 of his career, absolutely not. I don't, because LeBron, his athleticism, his freakiness, that dunk he had on Nurkic might be the best dunk of his career, and he's in year 15. And I would say this, I think this year, and you can take this back to 2007 when LeBron carried that team to the finals. I think this year, LeBron has had to do more to will his team to wins than at any point during his career. December, when they're on that winning streak, he's having to carry that team against the Sacramentos and the Memphises. Right now, he's having to do the exact same thing. At this stage of his career, he's doing more, and that's remarkable.
And I also, with the way the league is set up, with the spacing, and LeBron handling the ball more, he's more apt to stay at the top of the NBA because of the way the system is now. You can spread the court. He's going to be able to get to the bucket now easier than he could 5 years ago. So that's not going to be as taxing on his body. I believe him fixing his back and his overall health, because we have to realize who LeBron is athletically. And if he does not get hurt, and the way the rules are now, he's set up to do this for another 3 to 5 years.
How long do you think he wants to play for?
Until his son plays, honestly.
I mean, I think that's just, isn't that something the media kind of like
I don't know.
threw in?
I'm going to tell y'all about, look at
It's not
Tom
like
Brady.
we hear from Tom Brady every single day. He's always telling us how long he wants to play. I mean,
Every time, I asked you this, too, before when people were trying to put Tom Brady off the pasture. What do you do next? Like, you don't understand the thrill it is to be that person and to be able to play that sport and to dominate. Like, why would I do something else?
And LeBron has been very transparent, especially as of late, when he talked about chasing Jordan's ghost, about he wants to be considered, not just by a select few people, but generally as the greatest player ever. It is going to be incredibly difficult for him to get to 6 championships. So how long will he play? I think his argument, and I think you've said this, CC, that his argument, if it's going to happen, is going to be the overwhelming nature of the numbers.
That's the only.
And I would just say this too quickly: that one of the reasons you hear San Antonio brought up as a free agent destination is because of Greg Popovich's ability to kind of guide guys late in their career and keep them healthy and at full strength. So they're like Tim Duncan; they're playing to near 40.
So when we talk about how long will he go, well, he wants Kareem's scoring record. That's going to take 5 years. Like, so now we're talking about year 20. You mentioned him saying out loud to the media when he was walking through the tunnel, I'd like to play with my son one day. That's going to take to year 22, if that, not to put anything on the child. But, like, we're talking about age 40 would be 22 years in the league for LeBron.
Can see it.
Kareem did it.
So I was right. LeBron James will play for 80 more years. Chris, hang out with us. Coming up, what the heck is going on with Kawhi and the Spurs? We'll break that down next on First Things First. Back here with Chris Mannix on First Things First. We're going viral. On Wednesday, LeBron scored 35 points. He dished out 17 assists in a win over the Raptors. On Thursday, he had some fun on Instagram doing a little voiceover work. Take a look.
Uh-oh. I smell cover-up.
Better than nothing.
These are all lies, Migo. We saw you go below the clouds.
I didn't. I fell into the clouds and found him inside a cave.
Don't listen to him. This is all part of a massive cover-up.
Come on, stop.
We're all just a part of a big machine.
Jen, I feel like you've done voiceover work.
I did.
I knew it. I knew you've done voiceover work.
I did a couple of Verizon commercials. I did a little local cartoon one time.
You did a cartoon?
Yes, I did. And I needed my glasses to read it. Is that what you're getting at?
No, I just wanted to see if you had your script.
Oh, God.
God, we're doing this on the air now, too?
Jen Wolf's glasses here.
Right.
They're the reading ones. They're not my good ones.
Okay.
Give me these.
Fair enough.
Did you get all that out of your system?
Yeah, I feel better now.
You're going to be
It was
old
a
one
long
day,
bridge
Nick.
to build.
Oh, believe me.
To try on Jenna's glasses.
We all went over that bridge. Let us move on to real topics. The last time the Spurs saw their star player was mid-January. I think the show Friends was still on the air. Drama aside, things are getting all head-scratching in San Antonio. ESPN's Adrian Wojnarowski reported that the Spurs held a players-only meeting recently trying to get Kawhi Leonard to return. Remember, Kawhi has only played 9 games this season despite being medically cleared by team doctors. Some say the meeting was tense. Others say the meeting was not tense. Classic he said, she said. Danny Green tweeted this out saying, couldn't be any more incorrect, LOL. Chris, what do you make of everything that's happening in San Antonio right now?
Well, look, this is any type of meeting, however you want to characterize it, ratchets everything up to a different level. Now, even if it wasn't tense, if it wasn't emotional, however you want to describe it, prior to that meeting, you had Manu Ginobili making those public comments where Manu said, look, we're not expecting to come back. We kind of had the rug pulled out from under us when the media said he was coming back. We can't be thinking about all this. But there is clearly a significant divide between Kawhi Leonard and the organization, and you can see both sides of it, right? I mean, Kawhi Leonard came back from this injury, and then he immediately had to sit out again after a couple of games. That clearly is still resonating in his mind as something that he doesn't want to go through again. But the Spurs have never been a team that have rushed somebody back. Remember many years ago when Tim Duncan had a bad knee, they said, Tim, sit out the entire postseason. We'll worry about it next year. They have the exact same mindset with Kawhi Leonard. As much as everybody's talking about Kawhi leaving in 2019, the Spurs operate with the sort of the mindset that Kawhi is going to be there for 6, 7, 8 more years. So they're not going to rush him back.
But that's not what you get from Greg Popovich. We don't get to hear that. Take your time. When you come back, you come back. We get, well, if he thinks he's coming back just for the playoffs. I mean, those are some earlier
I don't think that's fair. I don't think that's fair. I think Greg Popovich, I think his reputation precedes him to a degree when Chris talks about they punted on a chance to defend a title. They were the defending champs.
Yeah, but he did say that, though. It wasn't like Jenna just made that up.
No. He did say that, but I do think that he has in the past always said, when Jenna says we don't get that from Greg Popovich, I think in the past we have gotten him saying, listen, we are going to be very cautious. We're not going to rush anybody back.
But we're talking about Kawhi now. He didn't say that about Kawhi.
Yes,
he didn't say, listen, as long as he needs, we're here supporting him fully, whatever it takes, even if it's the entire season.
He said there's a deadline.
That's what he said.
Yes, absolutely. He said there's a deadline, but that doesn't, to me, the deadline, he didn't say, I mean, nothing I read said Kawhi should be back. In fact, I need him back, and if he's not back by this, because I expect him back, if he's not back by this date, he doesn't get to play. What Greg Popovich has said is there's a deadline. I need to let my team know. We need to be able to operate under a certain state of mind, knowing whether or not Kawhi's coming back. And then he, by the way, a few weeks later came back and said, no, there's no deadline. Why would I put a deadline? Like, whenever he can come back, he can come back. But I think Greg Popovich's comments on players in general have always been, he's the guy that started resting the DNP rest. He's the guy that started, you mentioned why LeBron might want to go there, or why it's even discussed, because he's been so good with aging players. Like, that reputation does exist. What?
Remember this year at New England? Wait. Remember New England this year? The rumors came about Tom Brady not liking Garoppolo, and there might be some friction between him and Belichick. We were like, oh, wow, we never heard anything like that. Turns out to be fairly true. Now, Popovich, we can talk about what happened 20 years ago. But to me, it involves this situation. So it's easy to say, man, they've done this forever. But for me, I'm leaning with the player, all right? Because I know the player's reputation. I know the player's desire to play out there. And for me, that supersedes Popovich. That supersedes what San Antonio is doing. I also know the people who represent Kawhi. They manage my whole career. When I got suspended from Ohio State, they took over the management of my career when I was 21. When I stopped doing business with them, when I was 37 and I had gone into broadcasting because I chose another agent to be able to represent me. So that's my history with the situation, and that to me is stronger than Popovich, what they've done with the organization, because there's truly something that's not being told in this situation.
The biggest issue to me is not a disagreement between Kawhi and the coach or Kawhi in the front office or Kawhi and the medical staff. It now becomes Kawhi and his teammates. We don't know the level to which his teammates are frustrated by all this. And you can understand some frustration, especially from some of the older guys. Manu Ginobili, who could be in his last year in the NBA. Tony Parker, whose career is winding down. This team knows, looking at the Western Conference, right? This team knows that Kawhi comes back, they're as strong a front runner as anybody to get at least to the conference semifinals. And if Kawhi has enough time to work his way back into the mix, there is, you know, when you look at the Portlands and the other teams there is as strong a team as any to potentially upset a Houston or a Golden State. You remember last year how well the Spurs played against the Golden State Warriors. This year, LaMarcus Aldridge is having maybe his best year in San Antonio. You insert Kawhi back into the mix with 3 weeks to go. San Antonio, they are the team. If they're the 7th seed, nobody, like Houston's going to be rolling their eyes saying, we got to play them, or Golden State rolling their eyes saying, we got to play them in the first round.
I got a question for you guys. I want you guys to bet everything you had. If Kawhi could play next week, if you could bet everything you had, do you think Kawhi, if he could play, that he would not be out there? What would your bet be?
What do you mean could? Let me ask the parameters of the bet. What do you mean could? I think Kawhi can play right now. I think he's not comfortable playing right now. And the question is,
so then
what?
He can't play then.
Well, hold on.
Why?
Wait, no. The question is,
when you've missed 60 games and you tell me, oh, you can play, but you're not comfortable playing, that means I can't play.
Well, I mean, we know that guys are going to be playing throughout the year less than 100%.
Not
right?
guys who have missed 5 months. Okay? The guys who have missed that amount of time, they are healthy. All right, now their conditioning might have suffered. They might want more game reps. They might be a little rusty, but they are 100% healthy where they could go at a playoff tempo and not further injure themselves. Now, if we want to look at Isaiah Thomas as an anomaly, like that won't happen to anyone else, like we are crazy. You can put your body on the line and it could affect the rest of your career. Kawhi Leonard and other players. So for me, I know Kawhi. And if Kawhi could play, Kawhi would be playing.
My understanding of the injury isn't so much that, because he's going through workouts. He's playing right. It's not that he doesn't feel like he could step out there and play right now. There's still in his mind the risk of re-injury. And after
what's more important than that?
Well, then let me say this. If that's all true, then this offseason, you know what needs to happen? The Spurs need to fire their medical staff. Like, if this is their franchise guy, this is a $200 million contract he's sitting out there looking for, and a guy that almost won the MVP last year, is a finals MVP, and was an MVP front runner this year. Like, if it has gotten to the point to where weeks ago, the medical staff said he can go. And they weren't off by a week. They weren't off by 2 weeks. They might be off by the entirety of the season. There is something amiss here. I'm not saying Kawhi is being disingenuous. I'm not saying his representation is lying. What I am saying is there were other things that before we knew about the significance of this injury that we were talking about regarding Kawhi Leonard, about his unhappiness necessarily in the market in which he's in, about the unhappiness about his shoe deal, about whether or not after we heard LaMarcus Aldridge wanted out of San Antonio, if all of a sudden, if Kawhi Leonard as well. And now we're seeing this. Like, I can't ignore that. I think we're in a rare situation where both parties involved have earned an enormous benefit of the doubt, which is why I say, once again, I'm confused by it. But I'm not prepared to say the Spurs are trying to risk his future or being short-sighted and saying go out there and play. I think they've earned the benefit.
Spurs should have never released the information that he was available to play without Kawhi saying, yes, I agree with that. Because then you put them on 2 different tracks. So that's the Spurs' fault. With all their experience and all the great things they've done.
So why do you think they did that?
I don't know that.
I think they thought they were on the same page. At that time, I think they thought they were on the same page with Kawhi. Let me quickly just ask you a question, though, Chris. This is what I wrestle with a little bit. Is there an obligation on Kawhi's part to come back, even if you're at less than full strength, because of Ginobili and because of Parker? Guys that help you win a championship.
No. Okay. Absolutely not.
Okay.
Who are you putting your career on the line for?
Well,
so we're going to tell Kawhi to put his on the line for Ginobili.
Is it career on the line necessarily?
But how do we know that?
I don't. But
he's an elite player.
It's chance of re-injury. I get that.
How'd they win the last championship they got? You think Ginobili and them got that, or was that Kawhi?
Well, Ginobili and them did. Yeah,
it was the whole team, but Kawhi was the best player.
Ginobili made some massive shots for them to get them to that point.
But Kawhi was the best player.
He was the best. Oh, Finals MVP, absolutely.
He was the best player for the Spurs.
Defending LeBron.
Y'all let me know the people that are risking their career for other people. Y'all let me know that. Y'all let me know the people that run into a burning building. Because I don't see that.
All right, let's take a break. Nobody wants to care that I came in one time and I thought I had the flu. Chris, stick around. Coming up, Steph returns
missed
to
3 weeks.
Come on, just let me have the last line once. LeBron, Jenna, Steph returns to the court tonight, but what does it mean for the Warriors next on First Things First? All right, well, Max, thanks for being with us. Let's talk some Golden State. Good news for them. Steph Curry will probably return to the court tonight against the Hawks. Steph missed the last 6 games with a sprained ankle. Warriors still need to get Clay, Dre, KD back, otherwise they won't seem very Warrior-like. Here's Steph discussing the issue. Take a listen.
Definitely not 100%, but like you said, right now, there's nothing that's going to happen between now and the end of June that can change that. So as long as I'm not putting myself in jeopardy, it being stable and strong and able to support me on the moves that I try on the floor, I'm good to go.
So, Chris, this is an issue that we bounce around a lot here. How big of an injury is this for the Warriors?
Well, I think it's a very significant issue for Golden State. I saw them play last week and at the beginning of when Steph started sitting out some of these games. And, look, there's concern because it's the same ankle, the surgically repaired ankle, and then how he keeps sort of, extending it and getting these bumps and bruises along the way. They're not panicking right now, but the reason he's been sitting out as long as he has is just to make sure that this doesn't become something that affects them in the playoffs.
They quiet it down.
To quiet it down. But look, they're definitely afraid, given what's happened this season, of Steph, stepping on somebody's foot and having to miss 3, 4, 5 games. Maybe more so this year because really beginning in the second round, you're going to have some street fights. When maybe they wind up playing Oklahoma City in the second round, and we know the palpable disdain that Russell Westbrook has for that team. And then, of course, against Houston, their biggest threat in years, you can't get by the Houston Rockets with a 3/4 Steph Curry. You need a full-strength Steph Curry, and that's what's caused them some concern.
Yeah, one thing, too, is when you've had an ankle that's tweaked, okay, first of all, once you sprain the ankle, there becomes some weakness in the ankle joint. Now, Steph, over the years, with continuing to sprain his ankles, he's done everything from a training standpoint. He's added drills to add some strength to his ankles. He even wears the extra support as far as the braces up under his tennis shoe. He's got a signature shoe that's designed with extra support to help his ankles. So we know this is a significant problem, but every time you roll your ankle with that basketball sprain where the side of your ankle goes down to the ground, it seems like a simple thing. Last time, he was just going in for a layup. And on the landing and taking his second step, we saw the ankle roll. So he's had a history of ankle problems. There is significant weakness there in the ankle. And if he steps on someone's shoe, something you can't prevent, it's going to take at least a week because the ankle is weak.
Right.
It's something that he's rehabbed. Now, he's saying he's not 100%, but he's comfortable enough playing with it. Now, not to bring Kawhi into this, but because he's done it a lot, he's more apt to be able to play with it because he's a little used to it. He knows what he can do. He struggled with it in the playoffs a couple years ago. After a couple weeks, he got back to 100%, but he probably wasn't still 100% until after the season. But I think his comfort level, because he's been dealing with this for a long time,
he knows how to work around
the
it.
team would be more apt to let him go a little early compared to holding him because they've seen that they've been going back and forth with this for a long time.
And I'm going to add something that came out late last night that is perplexing to me. Chris Haynes of ESPN, I want to show you this picture. So those are Steph's new shoes.
What do you notice about
For the
this,
first
CC?
time in his tenure with Under Armour, he's now going to, when he comes back, he's wearing low tops.
Let him tell you.
So you mentioned the extra ankle support. These low tops, they are like the old, if you're if you like shoes, like the Kobe's.
Yes.
Like basically as low as the KDs the last few years.
Under the ankle.
Super low sneakers. And so now he'll still be able to wear his brace, but like I know you're big on the shoes. Like wearing the low tops coming back from the ankle injury is concerning.
When I was a kid, I read Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's book. And that's Kareem. You're talking about the guy who had the longest career and the least number of injuries. He was into yoga. He never got his ankles taped. So for me, when I got from college, they required it. When I got into the pros and I got a little bit of status, the trainer said, "Do you want to be taped?" And I said no. And it was based off Kareem. Kareem had the best history with injuries. He never got taped. The reason why he didn't get taped was because once you secure that ankle joint, all right, the pressure goes up to your knee joint. That's why you see guys blow out their knee, is because their ankle joint is taped. I prefer guys, and we have seen the last 5 years, more guys are wearing low-top shoes because they've gotten used to them. They played with. You don't have to have high-top basketball shoes on now to be able to play. Steph will still have the ankle braces, but I think the low-top, it's what technology, where
so
it is right now.
you actually think it's a good development for him?
Well, I know you can do it, and I know he's going to wear the ankle support. When you wear those ankle braces, man, you could wear flip-flops. Because that's going to secure the ankle joint and not give him the stability side to side.
When I talk to people out in Golden State, one thing that speaks to the severity of the injury, or at least the concern about the injury and how they've kind of sat him out, left him home on a recent road trip, is the fact that they're willing to sacrifice the number 1 seed to do it. Now, you can sit back and say, look, they're the defending champs, they're 3-time finalists, whatever, but this is not a Cleveland situation.
Yes.
And Cleveland could do that to Boston last year and still get to the finals. Golden State knows the type of threat that Houston is, but they're still willing to kind of wave the white flag on that and say, you know what, Steph's ankles are a priority here. But a reason to be optimistic on the other side of it is, remember when Steph came back from the previous ankle injury? Did not miss a beat.
No.
He was the best player in
amazing.
basketball for like a 2-week stretch when he came back from that injury. They're optimistic that rust or any of those things are not going to be
what Mannix is referring to when he sat out major time earlier this year, the month he came back, or the bulk of that month, he was the best we have ever seen him, including his unanimous MVP year. He was unbelievable. A healthy Steph Curry is still one of, if not the biggest threat in basketball. We understand that. But without him, this team outscores you by 2.5 points per game. That's good. With him, they outscore you by more than 10 a game. That's what makes them them. They got to have him in the playoffs.
As a basketball fan, you just want all these guys on the floor in the conference finals.
Yes.
You just need these guys out there on the floor for what could be one of the best conference finals we've seen in years.
Chris Mannix, would you ever wear flip-flops with an ankle brace?
There's a question I've never entertained before.
I ask the hard-hitting ones, and I ask them often.
Jenna's here.
Chris.
See you in June? Is that what?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
She
Thanks
wouldn't know unless she had her glasses on.
Okay. Wow, I'm going to get up once it gets
Back after
physical.
this. I'm Jenna Wolf, and thank you for listening to the First Things First podcast. Make sure to subscribe and tell your friends, family, and coworkers about the podcast, which, by the way, is available on iTunes and all your favorite podcast apps. You can catch a fresh new episode every Monday through Friday on FS1, starting at 6:30 a.m. Eastern, 3:30 a.m. Pacific. So long, everyone.